Amen. Early Writings 277, paragraph 1 and 2. Just want to recap what we spoke about in the last presentation. We went to GC 611, paragraph 2. We looked at the word Pentecost, but before we did that, we went to the paragraph before. And in the paragraph before, we can create a structure that's here on this board. We've got glory, the beginning of a worldwide work. It's the power of God. And we've got the third angel's message running through history. The second angel comes to join it. It's a singular angel. And that's all you get from the GC 611 quote. Now we've put Early Writings 277, paragraph 1. And when you add that into it, then you get this second group of angels coming down after the second angel, and then you've got verses 1 to 3 and then 4 to 5 in this sequence. So that's what we've got to so far. I just want to review what we've read. I saw angels hurrying to and fro in heaven, descending to the earth, and again ascending to heaven, preparing for the fulfillment of some important event. My brother, the first sentence. Sorry? You tell me what the first sentence is saying, what you pick up from there.
I cannot say anything about it.
My brother?
He's saying the angel hurrying to and go, or ascending and descending to heaven.
Okay, anything else?
Preparing for some fulfillment of important event.
And what's that important event?
It's the coming of the mighty angel.
So, it would be in this history? Yeah? So you've got angels ascending and descending, and the purpose of these angels coming back and forth from heaven to earth is to do what? Is to prepare some kind of preparatory work, preparing for the fulfillment of some important event. And contextually, that important event we're saying is when that angel comes down. So what's this important event that they're preparing people for?
Sunday.
For the Sunday law. Are we okay with that? Subject is the loud cry. You've got these angels doing this preparatory work beforehand. Then I saw another mighty angel commissioned to descend to the earth, to unite his voice with the third angel and to give power and force to his message. So after this preparatory work has been done, then she sees another mighty angel who's been sent to come down to earth And then when he comes, he's going to unite his voice with the voice of the third angel, and he'll also give power and force to the third angel's message. Are we okay with that? Everybody agree? Great power and glory were imparted to the angel. What does imparted mean? If you impart. Sorry? To give something that doesn't belong to you. When you impart something to someone, it's not yours. So he's borrowing some glory, and as he descended, the light was earthened with his glory. The light which attended this angel penetrated everywhere as he cried mightily with a strong voice. So when it says penetrated everywhere, we read worldwide. We've picked up worldwide here from the Great Controversy 6:11. So it goes everywhere as he cried mightily with a strong voice. Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils and the hold of every foul spirit and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. So what is when it says the light which attended this angel penetrated everywhere? What is light in this context? The light penetrates everywhere. Brother Andrew? The message that he's giving. Babylon is fallen. So that goes everywhere. The message of the fall of Babylon, as given by the second angel, is repeated with the additional mention of the corruptions which have been entering the churches since 1844. So she's taken us back to 1844, and in 1844 we had the second angel come, and she's saying now what is happening, Brother William, what's happening now in the context of the second angel. What's happening? So we're in the sentence, the message of the fall. Tell me what's happening.
The message is repeated.
So the message is repeated. So we'll go back here to Millerite history. We're in 44, and here the second angel was given, second angel's message was given, and now it's repeated here. What else do we know? Brother Festus? No? Brother Rogers?
So I think what he's saying, so what we see from here is that this mighty angel descends is a repeat and enlarged of the second angel that I read in human history. So he's repeating his message, but he's going to give an enlargement to that message, additional mention of the corruption that have been entering the church since that message was given in 44.
Did everybody hear that? Sorry? Yeah, okay. So they've said second angel comes in 44, and now the same message is being repeated, but there's an additional mention of some extra information. So for Brother William, that's my argument to say that this is the second angel. You can see in the verses themselves, it says second angel's message is given by him, and Ellen White saying the same thing. When he comes down, he's given the same message as this one, because it's the same angel. But all that's going to be added is there's some more corruption that's going on. And it says, with additional mention of the corruptions which have been entering the churches since 1844. Why is that important, Sister Joy? Why is she mentioning churches?
Because of the word Babylon, who's also identifies that Babylon is the Protestant churches.
In this history.
Yes.
And so this history is dealing with the same People?
The same people, isn't it?
The same people as this people?
Yeah, the same churches.
And so these are the Protestant churches. He doesn't say Protestant churches in this passage, but in another passage she does. So this is Protestant churches, and she says the church is here. So what about if you're an atheist and you say, I'm okay, because it's not talking to me? How about that? You're a Hindu, you've got no problem. You agree? I'm just trying to understand what you said. You said the target audience are the churches. It's the same churches. And the churches that we had here were the Protestant churches. He didn't say it here, but we could find a passage that said that. So is that, are you still agreeing, you're holding to that position, that the target is the same churches that were here? Now they're just a lot worse. Okay? And so what about all the other people? Like other 7 billion, I don't know how many billions, 5 billion, if there's 2 billion Protestants, what about all the other people?
From this, I don't see how they will come in from this passage.
Okay. Do you have a passage that, or an idea? I don't want to go to the other passage, but you said from this one you don't get it. So I assume you have something up your sleeve to say, yep, I can deal with the other one. Or is this not? You're suggesting this is not comprehensive.
Yeah.
So you've got additional information.
From Revelation 18.
From?
Revelation 18.
From Revelation 18?
Because the voice that is coming from heaven in verse 4.
Mm-hmm.
Saying, come out of her, my people. The her there will be Babylon.
Okay.
They will apply Babylon to be like the world.
Okay.
So the voice will be speaking to God's people who are in the world. So I think in this passage, Sister White is just curtailing these messages to be in the churches. So I will understand verse 4 to be the world, Babylon to be the world.
So in the original passage it says the world, Protestantism, Catholicism, spiritualism, everything. And in this passage, so that's your target audience. And this passage, it just says just the Protestant churches. Anyone else? How does everybody agree with that? Do you agree with that? At the back? Sorry?
I think in that time period she was replying to the Christian church.
In her time period, and in this time period,
She was replying to the world.
the whole world. But she says, the message of the fall of Babylon as given by the second angel is repeated with the additional mention of the corruptions which have been entering the churches.
I think she was replying to the Christian church.
Okay, so you agree she's referring to the Christian churches. And then what about the problem that Sister Joyce mentioned?
Problem now,
I can't hear you.
whereby after this, the churches have come in, then the world has also come in.
I didn't catch that.
First, you deal with this church, then the rest will enter the church.
The rest will.
Enter into the church when it is made purified.
Okay. My brother? I've got two questions, same two parts. First one, do you agree with this? And then if you agree with it, how are you going to reconcile that Babylon is this big thing and the churches are only the church is only 1/3 of it? Maybe even less than 1/3. No, 1/3 Protestantism.
I see it as a progression. In 1844, marking the start of their fall, and December marking the culmination.
Okay.
So, in regards to the world,
You need some more insight.
Okay. I agree with that. What shows us in the whiteboard.
A bit louder, sorry.
Okay, I agree from what you have showed in the blackboard, on the whiteboard, sorry. And it says, so what are you?
They like you. Just think of it as a compliment.
Okay, it's talking about the Babylon is fallen, and you have seen that it is where you have asked what about the world. The message is to the churches which are professing the truth, but they are at the same time mingling with the world. So God is warning, and this is based from a quotation from Great Controversy
383, you said?
382 paragraph 3. 382 paragraph 3.
Just paraphrase that.
So it says that Babylon is said to be the mother of harlots, and then by her daughters must be symbolized by churches that cling to her doctrines. And traditions and follow are examples of sacrificing the truth and the approval of God in order to form an unlawful alliance with the world. So there is unlawful alliance between the church which profess the truth and the world, and therefore this angel comes to warn. So this Babylon is fallen does not refer to the mother of the harlots, that is Catholic Church. It refers to the Protestant churches who are forming alliance with the world. Now they are repeating the mistake of the mother.
So when you go to the original passage from Revelation 18, my sister's saying that Babylon is the whole system, and you're saying this passage and the great controversy passage is only dealing with the churches.
Okay, it's dealing with the churches because the message is going to the churches, those who profess to worship God, but now they are forming alliance with the world.
Okay. Brother?
So,
I can't hear you.
the Babylon history is a bit different from the Babylon, the allegories.
It's different Babylon.
It's the same Babylon with some additional corruptions. And those additional corruptions is she has now made all nations good. Really matters, all nations, all the world, are now following after the Protestant churches. Yeah.
Tell me when you finished.
I would also agree that when she was talking about, I agree with the model that Biant. But this message is progressive, starts first in the church, then goes into the world. I would just want to define what Babylon is, because if you says churches, someone may think it's in a specific church. But when you read in Revelation chapter 16, verse 90 says, and the great city was divided into 3 parts.
So we've already done that. Sister said that, I agreed. Protestantism, Catholicism, spiritualism. Okay, so we know that. You carry on. I'm saying we already know that. We agree with that.
Okay. So today we may be giving this message with some additional mention of what has entered a third part of that which is the church. What has been entered in the church since the time the second angel arrived in 1840s. Since that time, there is more which has been entered in the churches than even in the time of Ellen White.
Okay, so I think someone's already said that as well. So how are you reading this passage? Is it saying that the churches are Babylon? Or is it saying churches are a part of Babylon? Who's receiving this message?
The churches are not Babylon, but they have just received the teachings of Babylon, the corruptions of Babylon.
They're not Babylon.
They have received the corruptions of Babylon.
What's Babylon? If they're not Babylon. We've got to stop doing this. You've got to talk to me. You told me a minute ago Babylon is in 3 parts.
Yes.
One of the parts is what? The churches. And then you're telling me now the churches are not Babylon. But you told me a minute ago that they were Babylon. You proof text it for me.
Yeah, the churches became...
Okay, we'll stop there. Let me ask you a question, Brother Robert. Millerite history. Here it says Babylon is fallen. Tell me what that means.
The Protestant churches experience the law of God as a result of rejecting the first gospel.
Okay, so that's a historical narrative of it. Explain what the words mean, Babylon is fallen. Tell me what's happened or what's happening. So in your answer, I want the target audience and what's happened to them.
The target audience for that message are the Protestant churches.
Which are whom?
Protestant churches of America. Protestant churches.
And who are they?
They are people. Babylon, they are Babylon.
They're Babylon. So when did they become Babylon?
No, I asked you that question. You never finalized.
That's why I'm asking you. When did they become Babylon?
For me, they have been Babylon, but when it gets to this stage, now they are falling.
Since when were they Babylon? You mean always?
Still a dilemma, but I say yes for now.
So you've got the target audience as being the Protestant churches.
The target audience is God's people. Protestant churches, yeah.
Almost got it there. Almost extracted it out of you. Which Protestant churches are these, by the way?
The message is going to God's people who are within the Protestant churches.
The message, Babylon is fallen, is being given to whom? Some people in the churches, or to the churches?
The issue is there are God's people who are in Babylon. And I'm saying that this Babylon is the Protestant churches. So the message is going to be given within the Protestant churches, and God expects that his people within the Protestant churches are going to hear it and respond to the message.
And what response do they make?
They're supposed to come out when they understand.
Who told them to do that? Who told them to come out? Because he never did.
So Millerite history, right?
Millerite history. He never told them to come out. And I'm pretty sure the word doesn't say that in verse 8.
It does not say that.
So he couldn't have told them that.
Who would have told them that?
He could not have told them to come out.
So the message Babylon is fallen is going to the Protestant church.
So let me start. All I want to back out, because I don't want to go too far, it's to the Protestant churches. So my question is, who are the Protestant churches?
Like literally in that history, who are these Protestant churches?
No, I don't mean like the Methodists who live in New York. I mean prophetically, who are they?
They are Sardis.
Okay, so we agree they're Sardis. So we've got 1798, they're Sardis. And Sardis is who?
God's church.
So it's God's church. So they're God's church in 1798. You agree with that? And then there's a message in April 44 that says what?
Babylon is fallen.
Who is that statement attaching itself to? Who has fallen?
Those people.
Sardis has fallen. So I'm going to say Sardis has fallen. Agree with that? Into Babylon.
Yeah.
Everybody agree with that? So the target audience are God's people. The target audience is not spiritualism,
In that history.
not Catholicism, only the Protestant churches, no one else. You've got to respond because they won't pick a yes in the camera. So he said yes. Anybody else?
I think I would go with it because.
The same?
Yeah, the same.
Because?
Because when you go to the message of Sardis, there are few who are yet alive. And I'm expecting that the message to go to those who are still alive, that they should be aware of the fall of Sardis.
So, I want to reiterate my question. Who's the target audience for this message here? Because I've got sort of like different answers. We just want to make sure we're all understanding who the target is. Brother William, who's the target?
I think these God's people. Because
When you say God's people,
because how I understand is this, that
who is God's people? What do you mean God's people?
that is Sardis in that.
Okay, so the churches.
Yeah.
So the target audience is the church. Yeah?
Yes.
Everyone in that church.
Yes.
Good and bad.
Yeah. No. Yes, it is just everybody.
Everyone,
Yeah.
good and bad.
Yeah.
Okay? Because some people say different things. That's why I'm asking. Does everybody agree, or you disagree, that when it says Babylon is fallen, that's to a body, a movement, a system, and that includes everybody who's in that system. If you're good or bad, it doesn't make any difference. That message is going to everyone. You agree with that?
Yeah.
I want to get agreement or disagreement before we move on. You disagree? Okay, so you said what Brother Robert said, so you disagree as well, or you agree?
With Robert.
Do you agree with Brother William, with this picture work, that everybody, good and bad, who lives in this house, that message is going to them? Everyone. So why do you disagree?
I go back to Millerite history.
No, you're not, this is Millerite history. I'm not going back. This is the Millerite history. Okay?
In Millerite history, the second English message is given to the virgins who are slept.
It's given to the virgins who have slept. You mean the good people in this house?
And the virgins are those people who, in 1840, had gone forth to meet the bridegroom. So they had accepted the Millerite message. So they are a bit distinct. Though amongst them we have written tares amongst them, but they are a bit distinct from the general churches.
I'm lost. I'm sorry.
So the way I understand it, how it happened in Millerite history is
I've got to be able to draw it out. If I can't draw it out, there's a problem with you or me. It might be me. But try and let me draw it out what you're saying.
inside this there are a few who are remaining. As Brother Machado was saying.
The good in this church.
Yeah. So I believe that this message is going to those people.
To those good ones. And you say to the good ones, your church has fallen. What are you saying to the bad ones?
Nothing.
Nothing. You're not talking to them.
If they hear the message, they just know they are fallen.
You mean if...
No, but I'm not talking to them.
Is everyone going to hear? The good and the bad?
I think so, yeah.
So why don't you just talk to the good people? Why are you letting the bad people hear? The reason why I'm asking, if we talk about parables, that message is encoded so that the bad people can't hear. Having ears they cannot hear. So I want to know in this one, can they hear or they can't hear?
In terms of the parables, they can't hear.
In terms of the Babylon is fallen message, you're saying they can't hear.
They don't understand all that.
Okay. I'm glad you say that because neither am I.
Sardis has fallen. So meaning Sardis is Babylon. Because the second Angel's message says Babylon is fallen. So meaning Sardis is Babylon.
Is that a question?
Yes.
Whose Sardis here?
Where? The Protestant church.
Protestant churches, and who is the Protestant churches? In terms of the great controversy, whose side are they on?
Who are the Protestant churches?
Whose side are they on? God's side or Satan's side?
God's side.
God's side. So when you say the churches, what churches are you talking about?
Those people who escaped the persecution.
And which people were they?
God's people.
Yeah, I need an identifier. So I went to Revelation 12, 14, 15, 16. I think my brother brought that passage up the other day. The earth helps the woman. And the earth is... So Sardis is the churches. Okay, so this is USA. What about the churches in Europe? Sorry? Revelation 17 verse 5. Someone quoted it here. My brother quoted it. He quoted it out of GC 382 paragraph 3. She's the mother. And a harlot is...
Corrupt church.
No, a harlot is what? It's a woman, and she says she's the mother of harlots. So the harlot is what? It's a daughter. So who are these daughters? Which ones? So they're the European churches, and they're already harlots before 1798. So in 1798, Sardis is God's people. It's the United States Protestant churches. When you get to April 44, it now says that same group of people is what's happened to them. That same group of people. Sorry?
In USA.
It's the same group of people. It says now they're fallen. So I'm trying to so that we all come to a common place of understanding. What does that mean when it says you're fallen? So the first thing I want to explore is who's the message given to? Okay, so I need something more than just God's people. I'm asking, is it everyone who's in that building, or only certain people in the building? Brother Robert says it's only certain people that receive that message.
No, everyone in the church.
So you're saying everyone in the church?
I think the message of the second angel, when he says that Babylon is falling, he's speaking to certain people in that building. I want to say he's speaking to the bad, not the good.
He's speaking to the bad, not the good. So, Brother Robert's saying he's speaking to the good only. You're saying he's speaking to the bad only. And you're saying he's speaking to everyone. So we've got three different answers. Why only the good people?
They're the only people who can understand what is happening.
They're the only people who can understand. Why only the bad people?
It's because the second angel, no, we have a history that precedes the second angel. That history is the first angel's message. So when the second angel really comes, he's only coming to make a pronouncement. Either you fail the test or pass the test. So Babylon is fallen is those who have failed the test. So he's telling the class who have failed the test, you have failed.
And you're saying both? Because?
Because the first angel was given to the whole church. Now the whole church, maybe it has fallen out the test of the first angel.
So, I think we're approaching this model in different ways. If you approach it with the model that we normally do, the everlasting gospel is a three-step prophetic testing message that creates and then demonstrates two classes of people. When you do that, when you get to this stage here, and you had these two people here, what are you identifying? A difference between them. You're identifying a difference between them, and you're going to say, then came the tears, or then you can identify the wise and the foolish. I know this is not August, I understand that, but here you're marking a distinction where there's this separation that's going on. And at that level, you'd say, you're fallen away, therefore you failed the test, and the other people haven't fallen and they can carry on going. That's the model. That's why you're saying the bad people. And you're saying I'm telling these good people, by the way, that person you're standing next to, they've now fallen. So he's speaking to the good people, and the bad person's fallen. So I think when both of you are looking at it, you're looking at it at this kind of individual level. But I think when my brother over there is looking at it, he's just looking at it as a church. So if you can take the Millerites and extricate them out of this story, then take them out of the story. They're not the target audience, because what are the Millerites? They're the angels, and the angels aren't part of the problem. So take the angels out. If we take the angels out, who's the message being given to here? Sardis. It's a singular group of people because there's no difference between them. Then you go through this and you tell that singular entity, Sardis, here, now you, as a whole entity, what's happened to you? You've fallen. And that message in and of itself isn't going to do any good. So you need another message that comes onto that. So we'll just read that other message that comes onto that. And this is Early Writings 277. I'm going to read the 277 paragraph 2, halfway into this. It reads, this message seemed to be in addition to the third message. We'll put that to one side. Joining it as the midnight cry joined the second angel's message in 1844. So the midnight cry message, what was the midnight cry message? So, behold the bridegroom cometh. That's what they were saying. But I want to change the wording of it, because she's quoted a Bible verse, and it says this Bible verse was like the midnight cry. So what's the midnight cry message? Come out of her. So all you're saying here is the whole system has collapsed to everyone. Everyone, you need to prepare for the judgment. Everyone, it's failed. Now, in that failed system, there are some good people. So you need to have a second message here, which will mark the summer of 44. And what's this message saying? Come out. And the come out, who is that to? So we know that one is to the good people only. Because these people, they're never going to be able to come out. Because they don't even want to come out. So, if we're okay with that model, then my question is, when you say Babylon is fallen in the Millerite history, the target audience is not the world, spiritualism. It's not Catholicism, but it's not just Protestantism in general. It's a specific type of Protestant. And the specific type of Protestant is someone who's God's people. Sorry?
Was God's people at first?
They've always been God's people, yeah. So they're God's people. So when it says you are fallen, so that I changed it to say Sardis is fallen, what does it mean if you fall? Sorry?
I failed the test.
You failed the test. So if you're fallen, what was your condition before?
Standing.
You were standing. So I want to suggest, did the papacy ever fall? Or spiritualism, did that ever fall?
No.
So just using that argument, papacy and spiritualism, they never fell because they're already corrupt from the very beginning. They never rose up. They've always been nothing. So when you get the threefold union, starts with spiritualism back at Babel. If we do it that way, it was fallen from the very beginning. Then Catholicism comes 538, and it was fallen from the very beginning. And then the third one that's going to join them, apostate Protestantism, that's different. There's something different about Protestantism, and what's the difference? They were standing. There were people who were good who have now joined the bad. There were good people who have joined the bad people. But Catholicism was never good. Spiritualism was never good. It was corrupt right from the very beginning, that whole system. Brother William? Comment? You look worried.
Yeah.
Happy?
Not really, because
I asked you, you said you was okay. You said not really.
because my thinking is, if you go to that history, and as I understand it, the reason why the second angel's message is coming is because the Protestants have rejected the first angel's message.
Yep.
Yeah, and now when they reject it, now this message is coming, and as I understand, is coming to all those who are in there, so that those who are good, they understand that the church has fallen and they need to be distinct. And the bad, they understand that because you rejected them, you see the wise, all the good people are going to understand, and they are going to, I don't know if you separate.
Come out.
Yeah, they come out. But the bad ones, even if this message is not going to have an effect on them, because they rejected the first, they will not be benefited by the second. But the message is to both.
Okay, so everything you said, I agreed with. Everything you said, I think, is what I said. So what were you not happy about?
I understood you like you were saying the second angel's message was specifically to the good only.
No.
If you see this.
I'm saying, take the Millerites out.
Yeah.
The Millerites are not part of this problem. They're angels.
Yeah.
And the angels come down and they speak to this building, this temple, which is Sardis, and it says, prepare for the judgment. And then as this building goes through history, it says to the building, you failed. So it's the building it's the structure, it's Protestantism that's been addressed, and when it failed, that structure can no longer move forward. So then you have to have a new group of people, a new church, however we would express it, and then it says, if you were in that system, you need to come out, which is a separate message.
I think I'm happy.
Okay. So if we all agree with that interpretation of Millerite history, so what we tend to do is, if we do line upon line, what's going to be the problem?
You will need someone who is standing, that is now going to fall.
If you do line upon line, you're going to need someone who's standing, who's about to fall. This is 1989. This is we'll go with 9/11. We can come up with Sunday law if you want. We can come up with different answers. April is Sunday law. We could do that. The existing charts do that for us. So if you're going to do that line upon line, what are you going to end up saying? The SDA Church becomes Babylon. So, then if we agree with that.
So, I want to ask a question on that, because many are making line upon line, and then they point to that drop that SDA is Babylon. So, how could we help them out of that?
How can we help them out? Help us out, Brother Robert. He's one of these Babylon people. He's not going to help us. Roger's going to help us out.
Okay, so anyway, I always had a way of explaining it. Personally, I've never believed that the church is Babylon, and I've taught that the church is not Babylon. So to me, the issue of Babylon becomes a symbol, and it depends on what level we are addressing it. So in times past, when I've dealt with the second angel coming down on 11, I've identified that Babylon to be a symbol of the laudation condition of the church.
Okay, so you do line upon line.
So there are some other lines that I do. Because like when you go back to 1888, Ellen White says, when she's addressing the angel of Revelation 1 to 3, I think I may not get that quotation directly. She like identified something here was a solution to the Laodicean condition of the church. Laodicean condition
How is it different?
It's not.
What are you saying?
I'm saying, how is that different from saying that it is a church? Because it's a Laodicean condition of the church, and who is Laodicean in this case? The Laodicean. Perhaps it's the Laodicean believe the Laodicean is a condition, but to believe those who are in the prophet that they are in a Laodicean condition. So is that not saying that then?
So I think my point is Christ a symbol of the second angel? What does the second angel say? He comes in his history. What does that mean, at least in the context of his history? I'm saying it's not the same thing. It's what you think to be the same, but to me it's not the same.
But if Babylon is a symbol of Laodicea, and then Laodicea is the same judgment church, for me it's just the same.
It's the same, that's what I'm saying.
So like we have a symbol, Laodicea is a symbol in itself, and then it is symbolized by Babylon. And then Laodicea in itself is a symbol of the same judgment. To me it's the same thing.
Okay. Sister Emma. Sorry? What? I don't understand what do you mean?
I said I don't know the end of what you said, but Festus was responding to. That was arguing over that.
Don't worry what they're saying. What are you saying?
I think I'm saying that I see it as a symbol of Babylon, and I don't think it's.
What is a symbol of Babylon?
No, that Babylon itself is applied differently in our line than it is to the church. I don't see it as applying. It's I'm seeing Babylon as more than Protestant churches in our line. It's a threefold union, and it's different. It's saying something different than it does in the Mennonite history, so I'm not going to apply it to the church.
Do you agree with that story?
Yes.
Okay, so all I want to say is it said the message of the fall of Babylon as given by the second angel is repeated with the additional mention of the corruptions which have been entering into the churches since 1844. So what do we do with a statement like that when we know this is factually correct, this story is the correct version? It's a group of people that had fallen, that was standing and now have fallen. What do we do with that as we move forward?
I see it as a progression.
1 second, progression, and you said?
It's a linear story.
So he's saying the same thing, he's seeing it as a linear story. Carry on.
If it's a progression, I see no point of any grade that will give us the leeway to place one line upon the other. So the fall that is starting in 44 will progress up until the point where we mark the culmination of that fall. So you just see it as the fall of the same.
So you remember the day before yesterday, I think now, this boardwork here. What did we do about this boardwork? What did we learn?
Progression.
Sorry? Progression.
And also using triple application.
And triple application, which is basically line upon line. So we have to have both of those things, and if you have both, you can get additional extra information and it saves you from making mistakes. We have to see it both ways. That was one principle. We had another principle that says make any application you want, that's fine, and you come to a conclusion. But if you find the original intent and then apply the original intent, you come up with a different solution or a different answer, and both of them will give you extra light. Remember those. They're similar, but I'm not saying they're exactly the same. Yeah? So this one, we want to see a linear progression, then we also want to see 1, 2 and 3, which is repeat and enlarge, line upon line. 1 equals 2 equals 3. We have to, if we do both of them, we'll get a story that is much more comprehensive, and you're more likely to be correct. Also, if you make an application, Leviticus 26, the 2520 is 2,500 years. That's a correct story. Everything's fine. But if you do that, then tell me how you're going to make Manasseh the time of the end, and Zedekiah, wherever we're going to make that, Sunday law, close of probation. How are you going to do that? Because that's got nothing to do with 2,500 years. How did you ever create that? And we say we created that through 7 thunders. And I'm saying that might be the language that you heard, but that's not the correct explanation of what we're doing. What we're actually doing is going into a period of history which we would call a reform history, and we're going to take that period of time in its literal setting and then take that and bring it to the end of the world. And if you do that, that 2520 is intensity. It's 4 progressive steps in a reform line, which is the original intent. And when you bring that into a reform line, it's not 2,500 years. It's not even 126 years. It's something totally different. We call that 7 thunders. And if you don't misunderstand what I mean, 7 thunders was not a good title to use. I would use 7 thunders, you would use 7 thunders. But when we say that it's 7 thunders, we have to realize it's not. What we're actually doing is taking original intent and applying it at the end of the world. We're not making an application and applying it. They're totally different concepts. And we have to use both. So what my brothers are suggesting is, when we start looking at this, we mustn't forget what we've already learned. And you have to factor in both things, progression and repeat and enlarge, or line upon line. You have to juggle both things to get a model that works. If you don't, you will get into problems. Is that okay? So I'm suggesting that the solution to our problem in how to deal with this is to start factoring in what my brother would call linear, or what my other brother would call progression. If we factor in a progressive history and then factor in line upon line on top of that, you'll see it begins to work in a way that's, I think, will answer many of our problems. It will answer things like, how comes this is 2A? Because that means 2014, which is not a right answer. It will begin to address that. It will begin to address that when we come into our history and we say at 9/11, I'll say rightly, Babylon is fallen. Who are we talking about? Are we talking about a Laodicean church? Or are we talking about the Protestant churches in America? Still, how do we deal with those two conflicting things? And I think it's understanding how you take line upon line and how you do progression. It will answer all of these questions. So I'm trying to help us to have some simple rules to follow. They don't work every single time, but you need to go through them. We should have like a checklist. So one of the checklists is, are you using proof text incorrectly? Because we use it incorrectly so many times. Are we looking at an application, or are we looking at original intent? That's another check that we should make. In this model, is it only repeat and enlarge or line upon line, or is there some progressive history that we need to factor in? I'm not saying these are new rules. If we were doing a school about William Miller's rules, we could probably find all of these things tucked into his rules somewhere. So I'm not saying they're brand new, rule number 15, 16 and 17. They're already existing rules. I'm not doing anything new, anything strange. It's something that we should still be familiar with. Any questions?
I didn't hear the conclusion on who the second angel's message addressed. Is it all good or bad?
I'm suggesting it's everybody, and that message means different things to two groups. For the bad people, it means what? It's your death warrant. You fail the test, you're about to die. This is Daniel chapter 4. Nebuchadnezzar's received the warning, he fails the test, and he says 7 times, I'm stamping 7 times on you, and as the 7 times hasn't begun yet, and then it's going to be executed. So by the time you get the second angel coming to you, your fate is sealed, which is why often we put a closed door there, because there's no turning back now. If you're a good person, it says you're part of an organization that is now corrupt and fallen, and you say, what am I supposed to do? I'm doomed, I'm lost. And you say, no, there's another message that's going to follow that says, come out.
So now, you see that is a linear story. For us to escape making the Seventh Adventist Church Babylon, we have to follow that kind of linear progressive story. But at the same time, in as much as we describe the fact that it's progressive, we can still do line upon line on it. So when you do line upon line, for example, if in the linear progressive story, Babylon is the Protestant churches, in the line upon line, does that symbol of Babylon have the ability to change from being the Protestant churches and in the line upon line application be someone else?
So when we start doing line upon line, we have to be more nuanced about how we're going to address this problem, and we have to go back into histories and apply them carefully. So if we just simply go along with this as we've already got it, and let's see how we do a linear thing. But before we do that, you have a comment? No? So, if this is the Millerite history, we have the second angel, and this is our history. We've got the second angel. I'll put AM. So, this is just an observation. I don't know what it means.
I have a question. I want to know what made Sardis to become part of Babylon.
What made it become part of Babylon? What made Sardis part of Babylon?
It's because of the doctrines of Babylon. They are also hard.
Like what doctrine? I help you. List out the doctrines of Babylon. Sabbath.
Yeah. Spirituality or the mortality of the soul.
Nature of man.
Then the small one like sprinkling, baptism.
One more.
Temporal millennium.
The temporal millennium. So that's the third one. So, what makes you? What was your question? What makes you?
What made Sardis to become part?
What made them come part of Babylon? And so your answer was? They're holding on to some Babylonian doctrine. Which one are they holding on to that makes them fail?
Temporal millennium.
It's only the temporal millennium. That's the only one.
Sunday.
They failed the Sunday test here somewhere. They were keeping Sunday here and they were God's people.
But I think the one that played the great role in that one is Temple Millennium.
Temple Millennium. They're not tested on the Sabbath, and they're not tested on the state of the dead. They're only tested on the millennial, the temporal millennium, which is what? What do we call that? Time. So that's what they're getting tested on. And when they fail, what message are they failing? They're failing the first angel's message. What is the first angel's message? What is the first angel's message? What happened here in 1798? What happens at the time of the end? Daniel 12. What happened at 1798 with respect to the book of Daniel? What is the unsealing? It's the message in relation to time. That's what gets unsealed. The message of time gets unsealed in 1798. It's in relation to Daniel 8:14, hence the judgment. So it's the first angel's message, because the message says the judgment is coming. And it's all about time. So if you don't believe the time, then you're going to fail. And why do we mark April 44? My brother, why do we mark April 44? That they fail.
Okay, because we say that was when the second angel came.
Why did he not come before?
They have to give them time so that if
Why did he not come later?
sorry,
Why did he not come later?
why did it come later? Later, which period?
Why did he not come in May or later on? Why did he come exactly at this point? My brother? Sorry? The cup was full. So we can go with the cup is full. That's the right answer, but I need a more contextually correct answer, a detailed answer, according to that history. So it's correct, the cup is full, my sister?
I think that was the end of the grand days where the temple was supposed to be cleansed.
So it's the end of the 2300 days. The 2300 days ends on April 1844. So this is the end of what? We'll go with time. So this is the end of time. And what's just happened to them? They failed the test. So when they fail the test, the second angel comes and says, you've just failed the test. And because you failed the test, which was the first angel's message, now you've fallen into Babylon. You've become Babylon. Fully imbibed. You're already holding on to Babylon's two doctrines. Now you've fully imbibed and accepted the third one, because there was going to be a progressiveness. You're going to come out of Babylon progressively. And now they've just gone... They've held on to Babylon's two doctrines before that, but they've not let go of the major one that they were going to be tested on, which is one on time. So as soon as they failed the test of time, he says, now you become Babylon. You've fallen into Babylon.
So, I hope you've not forgotten about the line upon line, because I'm not seeing how the Seventh-day Adventist Church is escaping out of that promise in our history.
Okay.
I would argue from that concept that before you become Babylon, God has to test you. And once you fail the test, like now the Protestant churches were under a test. And because they failed the test, that's why they fall. So for me, when it comes to SDA, Seventh-day Adventist, I think I've read a quote from Sister White where she says that no one has yet received the mark of the beast until the Sunday law where the Sabbath test is there. until they fall there is when they will have fallen. So for me, SDA has not become Babylon, but if she will fall at Sunday Law, she will then become.
Okay, so you're saying she hasn't become Babylon yet.
Yeah.
Which means she will.
Yeah. If by Sunday Law she falls, she accepts the Sunday sacraments, she will.
And we know she will accept.
I was just going to say, you're going to change the if. Are you going to say change the if to when? So you say at Sunday Law we become Babylon. That's what you.
But at Sunday Law, I believe God will have raised a people who will have. That is one of falling into the sin of this woman who is making all nations drink the cup of the fornication. So by Sunday Law, God has raised a pure church.
And what's the name of that church?
Church Triumphant.
Sorry?
The Church Triumphant.
Yeah, but there's only 7 churches. It's only 7. I'm making them up. Brother Rogers, Brother Robert.
Okay. So, Elder, to me what still remains is how we define Babylon. Because, like I will ask a question, in this movement, we have taught for a very long time that the angel of Revelation 18:1-3 descended in 1888. That is Ellen White, Johnson, and Wagner. They are giving a message to the church, Seventh-day Adventist. What does that mean in that context? Because they are being identified as that angel who says in verse 2, Babylon is falling, is falling. What are they doing in that context? So to me, it still remains, what's our definition of Babylon?
Okay, so what's your definition of Babylon?
So according to...
So I knew you had an answer.
The quote that I've given, to me, the definition of Babylon, I'm going to take it as a symbol, it's a symbol of laudation condition in the context of our church.
I'm still spelling that wrong. EA. So you're saying Babylon is Laodicea?
Yes.
I thought you had a quote or something.
She says, several have written to me, this review and Herald, April 1st, 1890, paragraph 8.
April
the 1st, 1890, paragraph 8.
1890,
paragraph 8.
We can't take this one seriously, can we? Because it's on April the 1st. It's alright. It's April Fool's Day, isn't it? Carry on now because we're going to ignore me.
Several have written to me inquiring if the message of justification by faith is the third angel's message. And I've answered, it is the third angel's message in verity. So we know that the light they were giving was a component of the third angel. Then she continues to say, so she makes that sentence and continues and says, the prophet declares, after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. So she's speaking about justification by faith being a component of the third angel, shifts and begins to speak about Revelation 1-3 angel. Then she says, brightness, glory, and power are to be connected with the third angel's message and conviction. So here she speaks of brightness, glory, and power. And I think that's what you're reading from our writings. That when this mighty angel joins him, he adds in glory and power. So then she's saying, because this is within the context of 1888. In 1888, this angel comes down to give power to the third angel. So she says, brightness, glory, and power to be connected to the third angel's message, and conviction will follow wherever it is preached in demonstration of the Spirit. How will any of our brethren know when this light shall come to the people of God? As yet, we certainly have not seen the light that answers to this description. God has light for his people, and all who will accept will see the sinfulness of remaining in a lukewarm condition. So that's the revelation. So she's saying when this angel comes and gives a message, then all will see the sinfulness of remaining in a lukewarm condition.
Summarize what you're saying there. What you think she's saying.
So we know that an angel is a symbol of human beings who have a message to give. So she's saying, this angel comes down to give a message to God's people. All those who hear this message.
So Wagner and Jones have come in to give a message to Adventism.
Whoever in Adventism hears this message will see the sinfulness of remaining in a lukewarm condition.
So they're the angel of Revelation 18. So the angel of Revelation 18 came down, Wagner and Jones, and they're giving a message, and they're saying, come out Laodicean condition, which you're saying is Babylon is fallen. Yeah. Hence, Babylon is Laodicea. And what? People thought that was funny.
I can also use, because the term Babel means confusion. Usually, I take one of the characteristics of Laodicean, which says it's lukewarm. Lukewarm is something, it's a confusion of state, of temperatures. But it's hot, they say it's hot in Babylon.
Okay. Coming back to our passage here. The message of the fall of Babylon is given by the second angel is repeated with the additional mention of the corruptions which have been entering the churches since 1844. This is Sunday law, we agree with that. So, this is the churches, and she's saying this is the churches as well. And it's the churches plus additional corruptions. What are the additional corruptions that have entered into the churches since this history? Tell me some of the additional corruptions.
It has become the whole of patriarchy.
So then you tell me what a bird means then, if they're going to, because it just says every bird, which means all of the birds. So bird equals. So I'll give you one. Spiritualism. Spiritualism came into those churches when? 1850, we marked 1848. So they come into the churches in that history. So that's one of the things that have entered into the churches, and it's gone from bad to worse. It started off very small and it's got progressively worse. So spiritualism is one.
I think post-Lateran message, the methodology, the Protestant theology of how to interpret the Bible.
So the Counter-Reformation. Anything else? Sorry? Sunday. I'm not sure why we didn't pick up Sunday. I thought that would be the straight one. But even though they're keeping Sunday, it's not promoted in the same way. It's not dealt with in the same issue. So, all we're picking up here is by the time you get to the Sunday law, I don't know if we agreed that this is a Sunday law, by the time you get to the Sunday law, all that angel is identifying is that how everything started, they're a lot worse now. And they're so bad now that when he came and gave this message, he's saying what? What's the second angel saying when he makes this statement? When you pick up about the cage and the hold. Revelation 18:3. I think it's 3. What about the cage and the hold? What condition are they in now?
Habitation.
Sorry?
Habitation of demons.
I'm saying they're always the habitations of that. It's now full. And full equals end. Or we could go with the word fulfillment, which means end. So, probationary time has gone all the way through, and by the time you get to this, if we could say their cup is full, the hold is full, the cage is full. There's no more room. All the corruptions are now fully there. And once that happens, now you've reached the end. So I don't know if we're happy that we could use this concept of progression and target the same group all the way through. The other thing I want us to see is when the angel came here, did he ever leave? He's always been there, if we're okay with that. When he first came here, where is the angel? In the wording, where is the angel? Revelation 14:8. So an angel doing what? Sorry? It's flying in the midst of heaven. I don't think it says it explicitly, does it? In the verse. Does it say explicitly in the verse? See, it doesn't say explicitly in the verse. It just says they followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen. But when Ellen White comments on it, she says, I saw 3 angels flying in the midst of heaven. That kind of language. So I'm saying, in here, the angel, if that's the earth, the angel is flying in the earth. We're okay with that? What happens here when this angel it lands on the earth? So the angel is here on the earth. And if you did the same with the first angel, you see exactly the same dynamic. Revelation 14, it's flying in the midst of heaven. Revelation 10, it's coming down on earth. So if we were to mark Revelation 10 as the empowerment, just based upon that, it's not the only argument that we have. I would say this is the arrival and this is the empowerment. So hopefully we can tidy that up. When we did this before, the board work was showing this angel suddenly comes down at the Sunday law, which would be 2a. You agree with that? But at this scale, it's not 2a, it's 2e. Hopefully we agree with that. So we know that this is a 2e angel if you take it at this scale. And so, again, if you take just this line on its own, it becomes the arrival, because now the message is repeated. If it's repeat, you must break the line and have a repeat and enlarge. So if you drop this underneath, it would look like an arrival, but as soon as you make it progressive, it loses that concept of being an arrival. It now is an empowerment. Are we okay with that? Brother William, or not? Yeah?
So if it's an empowerment in our time, then how are we going to do line upon line with an arrival and an empowerment?
Okay, so we have to deal with that.
Okay. Now, I understand that line of progression, but I'm asking, where did you get that from the quotation that you were reading, or from somewhere else?
Straight from this one. There's stronger ones. If we went to the Great Controversy, she says the same thing in a different way. This is written, is it 57 or 58? What we're reading now. Is it 58? This is one of her earliest works on this subject. Early writings. It's published in 1882, but it's taken from Spiritual Gifts, Volume 1, and I think it's 57 or 58. It's a very early work. And I think it's about, I think it's the first time she's going to sort of talk about this subject in any detail, and then she just develops it. If you were to go to 1884, 1888, 1911, the later works, they just expand upon this. So I'm saying, in this one sentence, you can see progression.
And ratings 277.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we were looking at L ratings 277 in the morning, William, I think, had us draw some sketch there on the board where you mark third angel arriving, then goes through this street and is joined. Okay, I hope you remember that. I think when we read,
yes,
yeah, the third angel arrives, it goes through this street. So I was thinking in my mind that where we were marking that point, we never marked it as a historical.
Which one?
the point where it comes and begins to move through history.
I let that go. I didn't make an issue out of it because I said, where you want to begin it? And someone said 1989. And so I just let that slide. Perhaps I shouldn't have done, because maybe it's confused people. But I'm saying you have to mark it here.
So that's what I was thinking.
This is 3A.
If you mark it at October 22nd, then from this quotation, what we want to see is a progression. And if you want to mark that history, another angel joining you, and that is the second angel, then we have to come back to this history and mark the second angel arriving. So then we have arrival and empowerment. Then that to me will be the understanding of the perfect fulfillment of the second angel. Perfect fulfillment is its arrival and its empowerment. Then when we come back to Millerite history, I hope we can be able to see an arrival and an empowerment.
So what we're going to do then, I think our class is finished now. Remember this morning when it's still morning, sorry. The previous class, where I had a discussion with my brother about Pentecost, and we got modelled up about Pentecost is the former rain or the latter rain, which one is it? And we say at one scale it's the former rain, at another scale it's the latter rain. Remember that? Yep. Yeah. So at this scale, this here, I've marked as 2A, and this is 2E. But what I didn't do here is give the waymark for that. What's tricky is I put it here as April, but we have to be careful how Ellen White's going to tell that, because if you go back into her writings, can you find any quote at this point? But hopefully, if you've ever searched for it, you're aware of it. There's no Spirit of Prophecy quote that tells you the arrival of the second angel. She says things like after the disappointment, in a number of different ways, and you can make the assertion through logic that 2A is April 44. And the reason I say that is because you remember Brother Robert was asking, and when did they even become Babylon? Was it sometime before that, and it's just being marked here, or is it at that point? And my argument is that it's at this point, and it's when the angel comes down. But you can't prove when the angel comes down. At least I haven't been able to prove it. And then someone's got a quote that says, some kind of fixed answer. All it says is it's after the disappointment, or the disappointment caused this. It's like a cause and effect relationship. The one that we do have a hard quote on is that in the summer of 44, the second angel's message was first preached. So she marks it definitely. She says the summer. It doesn't give you the month, obviously, but it talks about the speaking of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to see that same logic that you can go back into the history of Christ, and what appears to be a former reign or an arrival ends up being something different in the small scale. So this arrival here has to be connected with this one. Hence I'm saying, when this angel came, did it ever leave? And no, the second angel has been crying all of this time period. It's been present truth all the way through. But just because it's present truth, it doesn't mean we forget where the arrival is. So I'm saying the arrival is here at this scale. But in the Millerite line, it's not the arrival. And that's what's going to give us leverage to use progression and line upon line to build up the argument that we need to have to establish what's going on. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we give you thanks for your goodness and mercy. We ask for a blessing upon our day's activities. Help the thoughts and ideas that you're trying to teach us settle into our minds. May we meditate upon these thoughts, upon these passages that we've discussed. And in our conversation, may they be in tune with your will. May they be bent towards an understanding and an acknowledgement of these special truths. Bless us to this end, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.